Hello, everyone, and welcome to our final session of Photoshop. I am so thrilled that you all are here today because we have a fantastic group of students. You guys have been doing amazing at following directions and turning your work in on time, and not only just following directions and getting A-level work, but you guys have been making some really spectacular portfolio quality work. And I'm just really impressed with what I'm seeing, so thank you so much. I first wanted to open class with just covering any issues that you may have had last week. I think I had a student who wanted to come in and get some one-on-one help with their previous assignment because they were stuck with something. Who was that? April, was that you? Did you want some help with your last week's assignment? Okay, great. Go ahead, April, and share your screen, and I'd love to see what you're having trouble with. And you can just go ahead and open your week 3 project. Okay, now remember, you're not just opening up the background in Photoshop, you're making a new document. April, do you remember the size that I talked about in the week 3 class session? The size that's required for the week 3 assignment? It was 5 inches by 7 inches, 72 resolution. So it looks like you may have downloaded the pictures, but you haven't actually made a document yet. So let's do this. Open up Photoshop and then click on New. And we're going to make a document that's the correct size. And now you're going to change centimeters to inches. And the width is going to be 7, and the height is going to be 5, and the resolution is going to be 72, just like in the class session. No. The height is going to be 5 inches, and the resolution is 72. And then you're going to hit Create. And now you're going to bring the background in. So you're going to go to File, Place Embedded. And then click on your background image. And now you're going to hold down the Shift button while you click on the corner of the image and drag it upward at a diagonal angle. So hold down the Shift button and now click on your trackpad and drag it upward at a diagonal angle. No, you know the difference between vertical and diagonal? So vertical is up and down, which is what you just did. Horizontal is straight across. Diagonal is halfway between vertical and horizontal. So if you think of a triangle or like the roof of your house is a great example of a diagonal angle. So you're going to click on that corner and drag it upward at a diagonal angle like you're dragging it along the roof of your house. Now keep on holding down the Shift button, and it looks like what you're doing is you're moving the cursor, but you're not actually clicking and dragging. So what you want to do is put your finger on your trackpad and press really hard until you hear that clicking button. Good. Now, while continuing to hold down the Shift button, see, you're doing the vertical thing again. You're doing up and down. And what you need to do is diagonal, like you're dragging it up the roof of a house. like a triangle, like the side of a triangle that's at an angle. So while holding down the shift button, you're going to press and drag at a diagonal. See, you're dragging vertical again. Remember, think vertical is up and down. That's what you've been doing, and it's wrong. So instead of dragging up and down, imagine the roof of a house and you're dragging sideways, upward, at an angle. You know, I think I want to maybe show you a visual representation of what a diagonal is, okay? So I'm going to share my screen really quick. And I'm going to type in on Google the word diagonal so you can see it. So see how a diagonal line is not quite horizontal and not quite vertical, but it's upward. It's going like this. Let's look at vertical, which is what you've been doing. So vertical is straight up and down like this. Oh, here's a good representation. See how vertical is straight up and down? You've been dragging your cursor straight up and down. What you want to do is drag your cursor diagonally, okay? Now let me go ahead and share your screen again. And let's see you drag that cursor at a diagonal angle. So you're going to hold down the shift button. You're going to press your finger on the trackpad. Press until you feel it click, and then drag at a diagonal angle. Upward. So you're dragging down, upward. Good. Okay, but the thing is you're moving your cursor, but you didn't click on it. So you want to hold down your shift button, hold down that shift button, and then press your finger on your trackpad. Press really hard, and then see, that's a diagonal angle. You're doing good. Keep going, keep going, keep going. What you want to do is you want to fill your whole screen with your background. Good. Okay, stop. Excellent. I'm so glad you now understand. Okay, now what you're going to do is let go of your shift button and let go of your cursor. And then you're going to go down to the bottom corner on the opposite side. And now this is going to be a little confusing. Hold down the shift button. And you know how before we were going upward at a diagonal angle? Now we're going to go downward at a diagonal angle. Very good. Excellent. Now you're still going, it looks like a little bit of vertical. So you're going to hold down that shift button and continue to go diagonally. Good. And now let go. Now you're going to hit enter or return on your keyboard. Excellent. Now we're going to place another layer on our document by going to File, Place Embedded. And now you're going to bring in your animal picture. Now, you learned how to resize things by holding down the shift button and clicking on the corner at a diagonal angle. So if you want to leave him the same size, you're welcome to. If you want to shrink him down, you're welcome to do that as well by holding down the shift button and clicking on the corner. Do you want to resize him or do you want to just keep him that size? Okay, good. Okay, are you done? Is that where you want to place him? Now, if you want to move him, you can hit the letter V on your keyboard, V as in Victor, and then click on him and move him to wherever you want him on the picture. Perfect. Now, when you're ready, you can bring in another object. So either you can bring in the prop or the hat. And you know now how to do that by going to File, Place Embedded. Now, you want to place the hat on the animal's head. So you're going to have to do two things. You're going to have to resize that hat. That means make it smaller. And then you're going to have to move it into position. Now you learned how to do both those things. So let's see if you can do it on your own. Very good. You're doing really good at resizing things. And now I think what you're having trouble with is you're not quite pressing on your trackpad hard enough. So in order to click and drag something, you have to press really hard with your finger and then drag it into place. And then when you're done, you can hit Enter or Return. Now you're ready to bring in the final object. And I think you know how to do that now, right? By going to File, Place Embedded. So bring in the final object to your picture. Maybe it's the magic wand, or maybe it's the briefcase. Good. Good, and then hit Enter or Return when you're done. Okay, so now we're going to erase those backgrounds so that you can put everything together. So first you have to click on your Layers tab. So go over to your Layers, good, and click. And in our class session, I went over different ways to make selections prior to making your mask. So I really want to encourage you to watch that class session again. But I'm going to show you a really easy way to separate these objects from their backgrounds. So then I can get on to teaching this class and teaching everyone how to do the final assignment. So let's do this. Hit Command plus sign to zoom in. Command plus sign, good. And then what you can do is place two fingers on your trackpad and place your cursor right on the middle of the picture. And with two fingers, drag your trackpad over. And that way we can place, and you're not going to click, you're just going to place good. And now see how you're moving it around so that we can see the briefcase? Good. Okay, we want to put the briefcase in the center. Good, good. Now, it looks like you accidentally might have gone to the animal layer. So do this. Click on the prop layer, the layer that says prop 1 in your layers panel. Good. And now you're going to hit the layer mask tool, which is Down at the bottom of the layers panel, there is a square with a circle inside of it. So you are going over to the tool panel. We want to go over to the layers panel, which is on the other side of the screen. Good, and you're going to look for a square with a circle inside of it. Good, good, yeah, you press the square with a circle inside of it, excellent. And now you're going to hit the letter B for brush, the letter B on your keyboard. Oh, and it looks like you might have at some point selected another tool other than the brush tool. So go over to the left side of your screen where the tool panel is, and there's that brush icon. Click and hold on that, because right now you have the color replacement brush, and we want the regular brush. So click on that. Good. And now you're going to go up to the top of the screen, and we want to make sure that our brush is maximum hardness. So click on the 8 there. See the 8? Click on it. And bring the hardness all the way up to 100%. That size, hardness. See the word below it that says hardness? Good, and you're gonna drag that slider all the way up to 100%. Now it looks like at some point as well, you changed the blending mode to multiply. So go up, see where it says multiply, and you're gonna change it to normal, which is up at the very, very top. Up at the very top. Good. And now we have to make sure that we have pure black on our brush. So you're going to hit the letter D on your keyboard. D as in dog, good. And now you're going to hit the letter X. And now black is your foreground color. And now everything on this picture that is white, you're going to paint. So get your brush out and paint, 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 and you'll see that white is going to become transparent. No, don't choose a tool. Just start painting on the picture, the white background. See now how you're erasing. No, stop. Right now you're erasing the object that we want on the picture. So you're going to hit X on your keyboard, X, and now paint again to bring back the object that you erased. See, there we go. Now I know this is a little bit confusing, but we want to erase the white background, but we want to keep the briefcase there. So do you think you can do that? Do you think you could paint the background and make that go away? Hit the letter X on your keyboard. Good. And now just paint on the white background. No, hit the letter X one more time. Just the letter X. Just once. Just press the letter X on your keyboard. And now, if you look down on your keyboard and see, do you know what the letter X looks like? It looks like a cross. It looks like two lines that are across each other. The letter X. X for X-ray. You're going to press the letter X just once on your keyboard. Okay, you're going to press it one more time, the letter X. Because for some reason, it's not working. Usually, if you press the letter X, the foreground and background should switch, but for some reason, that's not working. Hit cancel. Hit cancel. And so I worry that maybe you're not pressing the letter X. So let's try one more time. Look down on your keyboard and look at the letter. Good, you did it. Yay, good. Okay, now you're going to move your paintbrush to the white background. And now you're going to press on your keyboard, on your trackpad, and press down. Now see here, you're getting close. The problem is your brush is a little bit too big. So you're erasing not only the background, but you're erasing the briefcase as well. So let's now hit the letter X again so that we can bring back the briefcase that we lost. Good. And now paint on the briefcase. Good. And now it's coming back. Excellent. Now let's see, this is probably going to take you a little bit of practice. So hit the letter X again and paint on the background. Good. And now you got to work really carefully. So this is what you're going to do for all the objects in your composition. You're going to use the color black to erase the background. And this is going to take you some time, so I'll leave you to it while I move forward with my class, and then I'll check in with you at the end of class to help you. So right now you're erasing all the work you did. So let's hit the letter X again. Good, and now paint on just the white background. Excellent, good job. Okay, and so I'll begin the class and I'll check in with you in a little bit, but you want to work really carefully, and if you make a mistake, you'll just hit the letter X to erase that mistake. So in this week's class, you guys get to make your own poster, your own original composition. And this is your chance to use all the skills that you learned in the last couple weeks of class. We're going to make something that's the correct poster size. We're going to make something that has a bunch of different images in it. We're going to learn how to save something not only as a JPEG, but as a PDF as well. And we're going to utilize the principles of design, which is contrast, repetition, alignment, and proximity. So before I get into that, I really want to encourage you, one, how very, very important it is to back up your work. Because even though this is just your first design class, you're going to eventually want to use the projects that you made in this course in your capstone class, which is going to be your portfolio class, where you put all of your class projects into a portfolio, and then you send that portfolio out to get a job. So it's really, really important that you don't lose your school projects and you don't delete them, and that you save your native file formats. So if you haven't already done this, get an external hard drive and copy, don't just move, but copy all of your school assignments onto that external hard drive, so you have your work not only saved on your laptop, but on an external hard drive as well. And if you want to be really smart, copy and upload your assignments to Google Drive or some sort of cloud drive, so it's saved safely on the internet. Google Drive is great. Now, with this project that we're making this week, it's really important that you don't accidentally shrink and permanently save your native file format, which is your PSD file, because we're going to be shrinking our file down to make a JPEG. And if we then save it and we shrink our native file down, then we lose that high resolution version of our project. So watch out for that and don't accidentally make that mistake. Alrighty, let's go and venture over to the classroom and see if we can figure out what we're doing this week. And this is going to be a really fun chance for you all to make a portfolio quality assignment. So what it says is to make a document 17 inches tall by 11 inches wide at 300 dpi, and it's going to be a social issue poster. And think of something that's been done by like the Ad Council. So something about an issue using dynamic imagery, and you need to use at least 3 or more photo elements composited together to create a poster. And you can use any of the slogans here or any of the subjects here. And then we have a number of slogans that you can use as well. Something that you want to do in not just this class, but all of your classes is take a look at the benchmark examples, because these benchmarks give you a great idea of what students have done in the past and what you can potentially do for your project. So here we have a very, very nice, simple design where we have the 3 different photo elements composited into this heart shape, and they're all blended together very nicely. We have a nice slogan, and then we have a website URL at the bottom. So this is a perfect, nice, simple poster design that would definitely get someone an A. And here is the other sample. Right, so we have the 3 different photo elements composited together. We have this background, we have the picture of the earth, and this guy with the colored paintbrush, and then we have this dog down here, and it says, be the change you want to see in the world. And it's colorful on one side. So it's very important that you use imagery that conveys your message of some sort. And we have some really great imagery here to choose from. So Michael is asking, can you use images outside of the classroom as long as they meet the free to use criteria? Okay, here's the thing. You are more than welcome to use outside images for this assignment. The problem is, in the past, I've had students use very low quality images that are grainy, pixelated, blurry. Maybe it's photos that they take themselves with their camera phone, and it's low lights and it's not very good. So if you do use outside images for this poster, please do make sure that you use very high quality images. And you also need to make sure that you use images that are license free. And so let me go over one more time how to create license free images. So you can do that by going, of course, onto Google, but you need to use the license free image search. Yep, Pixels is a good place to go. So let's say we want to use a raccoon. We'll go over to, we're in Google Images, and we're going to go to Tools, and we're going to click on Usage Rights. See where it says Usage Rights? And we're going to click Labeled for Reuse Modification. And we need to make sure that whatever image we use is nice and large and high resolution. So we're going to go over here to Size, and we're going to click Large. And ideally, larger than 4 megapixels is a good way to go. So larger than 4 megapixels. And for an animal picture, we want to find something where we can see the full body, hands and feet, so we don't accidentally have a little creature where his limbs are cut off. So let's find a nice high resolution picture of a raccoon looking cute where we can see his hands and his feet and his whole body. There we go. So we'll click on this. Also, Wikimedia is good. I worry that PX here is going to ask us for a membership in order to download. Yep, it's asking us to log in. So another Wikimedia Commons is also a really great place to go. Let's see. See, sometimes it's so hard. Here we go, Wikimedia Commons. So hard to find things that are crisp and clean and in focus. Click on this. There we go. View it full res, and then Control click. Save image as, and then save it to your desktop as a JPEG. And D'Angelica, yes, you're welcome to create your own slogan. Sometimes students have trouble with spelling and grammar, and it's really important that if you do make up your own slogan, it must have correct spelling and grammar, or else you will lose a substantial amount of points. Because if you have spelling or grammar mistakes in your professional portfolio, it will result in you not getting a job. So it's very, very important that you everything in your poster is spelled correctly. So we want to make sure that what you use in your poster is photo elements. Please do not use clip art, illustrations, or graphics. And this is another thing that sometimes students get confused on. What is the difference between a photo element and a piece of clip art, an illustration, or a graphic? A photo element is something that's been created with a camera. So a photo element will look real. And with 3D technology, sometimes it's hard to tell the difference between something that's real and something that's not real. But if you are confused at all, send that image to me, and I will help determine whether it is a photo or whether it is an illustration. So illustrations are usually made by drawing, or they're made on the computer. Photos are made with a camera. And so the only images that we're going to use for our poster are things that are created with a camera, like the images that are available here for you to choose from. Because I want you all to earn the best grade possible, I do really want to strongly encourage you to use one of the slogans available here and 3 of the images available here, because that way you know that you're going to get it right. And you know that all of these are photos and not illustrations. Alrighty, so we need to make our document the correct size, and we need to make sure that the final things that are submitted are going to be a JPEG and a PDF. So what is going to be submitted in this assignment is a JPEG that is shrunk down to 500 pixels on its shortest side, and a full-size PDF. So let's go to work making this document. So we're going to go to File, New, and let's write down these steps, because these steps can be kind of confusing if you think that you're going to remember it, but you don't write it down. It's going to be hard to remember. So if I were taking notes, I would write at the top of my notes, how to make my final project. And I'd probably underline that because it's a title. And then I'd write out the steps. So I'd write the number 1 for step 1, and I'd probably circle it. And then I'd go to write File, New. File, New. And then I'd make the width 11 inches. I'd make sure it says inches there and not pixels or centimeters or something strange. And then I'll make the height 17 and the resolution 300 and the color mode RGB, because we have the most filters available in RGB. And there we go. We are on track to making our document. I'm going to show you something now that will help you to utilize the principles of design, principles that you're talking about this week in your discussion board post, called contrast, repetition, alignment, and proximity. And something that's going to really help you with alignment is using a guide and a grid in Photoshop. Now you'll notice that on my workspace here, I have rulers. So I have a ruler on the left side here, and I have a ruler at the top. If you don't see those rulers on your own workspace, hit Command R or Control R if you're on a PC to bring those rulers up. And that's a good thing that you probably want to put in your notes. So you can write down Command R or Control R and then an equal sign and then rulers, because Command R is the shortcut key to bring up your rulers. Next, we're going to bring up these guides that will help us to make a nice margin around the edge of our document. So I'm going to click on my ruler here, and I'm going to drag downward. And I guess this is something that's really important for everyone. April, are you paying attention? When you're dragging these lines down, you want to make sure that you press really hard on your trackpad so that you actually click and you can feel it under your finger. You can feel that click. And that lets you know that you're ready to start dragging. So what I'm creating here is a 1/2 inch margin around the edge of my document. And Tabreen asks a great question. How do you get your ruler back if it disappeared? What you can do is hit Command R. Let's do that, Tabreen. Hit Command R and see what happens. Did your ruler come back? Okay, Tabreen, let us know whether or not your ruler came back when you hit Command R. Okay, so this is something good to put in your notes. If your ruler disappears, you're gonna press Command R and it will come back, okay? So write that down in your notes, Command R to make your ruler come back. So now I'm gonna go over on this ruler and I'm gonna click and I'm gonna feel that click underneath my finger, and then I'm gonna drag and see I'm creating a 1/2 inch margin around my document. I'm using the rulers to find a 1/2 inch. And why am I making a 1/2 inch? Because usually when you're sending something to print, about a 1/4 inch will usually end up getting cut off by the printer. So it's really important that all of your important photo elements and text elements all stay inside of that 1/2 inch margin. Next, I want to find the exact center of my document. So I'm going to use the guides that are available in Photoshop. And I don't even have to do any math to do this. You know, normally if we're trying to find the center of something, I would say, okay, so my ruler at the top says 11, so I need to find 1/2 of 11, which is 5.5 inches. And so that's one way to do it. But I can also have Photoshop do the work for me by going up to Photoshop up at the top of the screen, going to Preferences, and then going to Guides, Grid, and Slices. Guides, Grid, and Slices. And I'm going to set up my guides in Photoshop to give me a line every 50% of the document. So see down here in our Preferences where it says Grid. First, actually, I'll show you the default. The default grid in Photoshop is 1 inch with 2 subdivisions. And I forget what the original color is. I've just been changing my color so much. I think maybe it might be a grayish color. And so your grid will show up when you go either up to View, Show, Grid, or hit the shortcut key, which is Command apostrophe. And that's a good thing to write down, you guys. Command apostrophe or Control apostrophe will bring up your grid, which looks like that. And I just realized some of you might not know what an apostrophe is. So let's talk about that. An apostrophe, have you ever been writing something and you want to show that something belongs to someone? So if you might say, this is Tabreen's pencil, and at the end of the name Tabreen, you'll see a little mark and then the letter S. So that little mark that's up at the end of your name before the letter S, that's called an apostrophe. And that is found next to the Enter or Return key on your keyboard. And it's just a little dash that would go around the S. And I'll type it in the chat. So if I'm typing a sentence that says, this is to Breen's pencil, you can see that little mark before the S, that's called an apostrophe. So command apostrophe brings up the grid, okay? And by default, your grid will probably look something like this, where there is a grid line every inch. And what I'll do is I'm going to go up to Photoshop, Preferences, Guides, Grid, and Slices. And I'm going to change it so that instead of it being a grid line every 1 inch, I'm going to make a grid line every 50%, okay? 50%. And see how handy that is? It gives us the exact center of our document. So I'm going to show you how to make that heart shape that we saw in the previous benchmark example, right in the center of our document. So I'm going to go over and use a tool that we learned in week 1, which is the custom shape tool. The custom shape tool, which is right there. And now I'm going to go up to the top of our Photoshop workspace, and I'm going to go to our custom shape library, and I'm going to find the heart shape in our custom shape library up at the top of the screen. And now I'm going to hold down the Shift button, click and drag downward at a diagonal angle. And remember, a diagonal, oops, I let go too soon, so I'm going to hit Command Z to undo. And I'm going to do it again. Remember, a diagonal angle is not vertical, which is up and down, and it's not horizontal, which is side to side, but it's an angle, like the roof on your house. So I'm clicking and dragging to a diagonal angle to draw this heart shape while holding down the Shift button. And I'm going to let go of my clicker on the trackpad, and I'm going to let go of my Shift button to make a heart shape. Now, did I go too fast for anyone? Does anyone want me to do that again and show you how to make a heart shape on your document? Or are you ready for me to move on? Breen, would you like me to do that again? Okay, I'm going to hit the delete button. Okay, let's watch this. So first, you see over here in the tool panel how, just like we talked about in week 1, we have a button for the custom shape tool. And that custom shape tool has rectangle tool, rounded rectangle, ellipse tool, polygon tool. Custom shape tool has all these different tools that are all roommates together. They all live on the same button. Do you see that? And you see there's a tool at the very bottom called the custom shape tool, which looks like a little amoeba. Cool. You're going to click on that. And now you're going to go up to the top of the screen to the custom shape library. And you're going to click on the custom shape library, and you see all these different shapes that you can choose from. And I'm going to click on the heart shape. Do you see that, Breen? Okay, good. And now I'm going to place my cursor on the canvas. I'm going to hold down the Shift button, and then I'm going to click and drag at a diagonal angle, diagonal and down, while holding down the Shift button. I'm then letting go of my clicker, and then letting go of my Shift button. Does everyone see that? Is anyone confused at this point? Does anyone need me to go over this again? Okay, now what we're gonna do is we're gonna place some photo elements inside of that heart. So I'm gonna hit enter or return to place that heart on the document. And now I'm gonna go up to File, Place Embedded, File, Place Embedded. And I'm gonna bring in some animal pictures. I'll bring in this little guy. Now I need to make sure that that heart is gonna have room for lots of different animals. So I'm gonna hold down the shift button, click and drag it on the corner at a diagonal angle, shrink him down, and place him about there on the heart, okay? And then I'm gonna hit enter or return. Now I'm gonna bring in another photo element. So I'm gonna go to File, Place Embedded. That bunny's too small. How about a raccoon? This little guy. Now I'm gonna hit place, and I'm gonna hold down the shift button, click and drag, hold down the shift button, click and drag, and I wanna just make sure that he is nice and there, right on the heart. Yes, I'm a big raccoon fan. Hit enter, let's go like this. Enter or return. Yay! Now I just need to put a third picture on the other side of the heart. So I'm gonna go to File, Place Embedded. What else do I have? I have this little guy. So I hit place, hold down the shift button, click and drag. There we go. So I've all placed them over the heart, but they are not yet inside the heart. And so remember how we used clipping masks last week? Clipping masks to put photos inside of things and to put adjustment layers inside of layers. We're gonna do that to put these photo elements inside the heart. So first thing I'm gonna do is I'll click on the lamb layer, and I'm gonna hold down the Alt or Option key on my keyboard. So if I look between the Command button and the Control button on my keyboard, I'll see the Alt or Option button, and I'm gonna press the Alt or Option button down, and then I'm gonna hover my cursor over the line between the lamb layer and the shape layer. And now I'm gonna click. And see, now the lambs are inside the heart. Now I'm gonna go to the raccoon layer, and I'm gonna hold down the Alt or Option button, the Alt or Option button. And then I'm gonna hover my cursor over the line between the raccoon layer and the lamb layer while holding down the Alt or Option button. So I'm holding down the Alt or Option button while hovering my cursor over the line between the raccoon layer and the lamb layer. And I'm gonna do the same thing for the capybara. I'm gonna hold down the Alt or Option button, and I'm gonna hover my cursor over the line between the capybara layer and the raccoon layer, and then I'm gonna click. Okay, so we're almost there. So the problem here though, as you see, as I'm gonna hit Command + sign to zoom in, is that this capybara picture is overlapping the raccoon picture, and this raccoon picture is overlapping the lamb picture, and I want them to blend together nicely. So I'm gonna use masking, which is the skill that we learned last week. So I'm gonna click on the layer that says capybara for this guy. I'm going to click on the square with the circle inside of it at the bottom of the layer panel. And that brings up the layer mask. Now I'm going to go over to the brush layer on the left side of the screen on the tool panel. I'm going to make sure that my brush is on 0% hardness, so it's nice and soft. I'm going to make sure my opacity is at 100%. And I want to make sure that my brush is nice and large. So I'm going to use the brackets, which are located next to the letter P, to increase the size of my brush. And now, making sure that black is my foreground color. Remember, you can hit D on your keyboard to reset your foreground and background colors. And see, just by painting with a soft edge brush, I've helped these layers blend together. And now I want to blend the raccoon layer into the lamb layer. So I'm going to click on the raccoon layer. I'm going to click on the square with a circle inside of it. I'm going to get my paintbrush out and watch as I paint. I can create a nice blend there. Now the problem is I have this little line here because we can see a little bit too much of the background. So I need to paint that back in and cover that up. So I'm going to hit the letter X on my keyboard. Now I'm painting with white and I can paint back in that little part that I erased too much of. Same over here. And just there's a little part there I need to get rid of, so I'll hit X. I'll just blend a bit. There we go. So now I have half the assignment done. I have 3 photo elements all composited into a shape. So it's starting to look nice. Now what I need to do is put my text on here. So I'm going to use the rulers and the guides to help me with this. So I'm going to go over onto the left side of the screen where the vertical ruler is, and I'm going to click and drag. I'm going to place my guidelines on the edge of the heart here because I want my text to line up nicely with the heart. Now it's important to remember that these lines that I'm putting on my poster, they're imaginary lines. So when this is finally saved as a JPEG or a PDF or printed out, these lines are not going to be here. They're just there to help us figure out where these different elements are going to be placed on the image. Now I want to place text above everything, so I'm going to click on my topmost layer. Then I'm going to get my text tool out. I want to make sure that I'm typing with black, so I'm going to hit the letter X on my keyboard. I'm going to place my cursor on this line, and I'll type in "be kind" for "be kind to animals." Now the thing is, this text is very small, and what I want to do is increase the size of my text so that the B lines up with the edge of the heart and the D lines up with the edge of the heart on the other side. So I'm going to use my Move tool to increase the size of this text. I can either hit the letter V on my keyboard, or I can go over to the left side of the screen to the toolbar and click on the Move tool, which is this tool right here. Next, you want to be sure to write this down because this might be something that you might forget. You want to hit Command T. Command T. Command T is the transform controls, which allow you to increase the size of your text. Now I'm going to hold down the Shift button and click and drag on the corner at a diagonal angle. And I really want to make sure that that D is going to line up nicely with the edge of the heart. So I'm going to hit Command +. Zoom in nice and close. I'm going to hold down the Shift button and click diagonally. Click and drag diagonally. I'm going to go over to the other side. hold down the shift button, click and drag diagonally. Good. And now I'm going to hit enter or return. So see how this is the edge of the heart, and the line is making a nice line from the B to the edge of the heart, and it's making a nice line from the D to the edge of the heart using the guidelines. This is called alignment, which is one of the principles of design that you are learning about this week. So now I'm going to make another text layer by either clicking Shift Command N or by clicking the Create a New Layer icon. I'm going to go to my text tool. I'm going to bring my cursor on this guideline that I created. And then I'm going to go over to the Move tool. And I'm going to hit Command T. And I'm going to hold down the Shift button and then click and drag at a diagonal angle. And then hit enter or return. And I want to bring this up a little bit. So I'm using my Move tool to bring this up. And so the T is lining up with the line there, and the S is lining up with the line. Perfect. So it's all aligned nicely. And the final thing is we have to put a website URL. And this is something that you can just make up. Please, 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 please make sure that the website URL that you use on your poster is something simple, like www.animals.com or www.stophate.com or something. Don't make it like https://www.something/resist whatever. Make it a very, very short website URL that's a simple www.xyz.com. And make sure that, correct website URL format is always all lowercase. Don't put capital wwws. That looks weird. So next I'm going to make a new layer, and I want to use a font that doesn't compete with my text. So I'm going to use a thinner font. I like Helvetica New Ultralight. Actually, Helvetica New Thin is going to be good because it's a very thin font and it's not going to compete with my text, my big, bold slogan text. So I'm going to go to Center Aligned here, Center Text. I'm going to place my cursor on the middle of my guideline here, and I'll type in www.bekind.org. And now, again, right now my text is black and it's very high contrast, and it might be competing with the slogan. So I'm going to lower the opacity of this text by going over here to the layer panel and lowering the opacity. So it's nice and light, and so it doesn't compete with the text. Then if you want to see what your poster looks like without all the guidelines on it, you can hit Command apostrophe. Remember, apostrophe is that little kind of little tiny line that is next to the enter or return key. So Command apostrophe to make your guides go away, and then Command semicolon to make the guides that you just drew on with the ruler go away. And Command semicolon is right next to the apostrophe button. I'm sorry for all these complex words, but the semicolon is next to the letter L on your keyboard. So if you hit Command and then you look at that little dot and a comma that's next to the letter L, that's your semicolon, and that will make your guides and your grids go away. And that's what our poster would look like when it's printed out. Now let's go through the process to save this correctly. Now, really important thing to note, and this is what you want to pay attention to. You're going to save a PSD document, that's a Photoshop document, but you're not going to turn it in. So write this down in your notes, guys. Save the Photoshop document, the PSD file. Save the PSD file, but do not turn it in. Do not turn in the PSD file. The two files that you're going to be turning in, write this down. The two files that you're going to be turning in are PDF and JPEG. You're going to be turning in a PDF and a JPEG. So first, let's learn how to save the native file format that you're going to be backing up, but not turning in. So to do that, we're going to go to File, Save As, and we're going to go to that folder that we made for our class, DES104, and we're going to name this DES104_Week4_ your name. And of course, it's going to be Photoshop document with all of your layers. And then you're going to hit Save. And then you're going to hit OK. So now we're going to go through the process for saving a PDF, which is going to take a few more steps. So the process to save a PDF is first to rasterize all of our layers. And we're going to do that, write this down, by going up to Layer, Rasterize all layers. Layer, rasterize all layers. Now it's turning that text into images. Next, we're going to save our document in RGB mode. So write this down, you guys. We're going to go up to Image at the top of the screen. Image at the top of the screen, and we're going to go to Mode. I'm sorry, not RGB, CMYK. And we're going to change it to CMYK, which is the common mode used for print. And we're going to click Don't Flatten. Image, Mode, and select CMYK, which is the common mode for print. Now we're going to merge all of our layers together without deleting them. And this way, it's going to guarantee that our PDF will show up looking good in the gradebook. So this is something you're definitely going to want to write down because you'll probably get confused. It's Shift, Command, Option, E. 4 keys on your keyboard that are all going to be pressed down at the same time. Shift, Command, Option, E. And see how it now merged all those layers together without deleting them. Now we're ready to save our PDF. So I'm going to go to File, Save As, and where it says Format, we're going to select Photoshop PDF. And where it says Layers, we're going to uncheck Layers. And then we're going to hit Save. Now, from this dialog box, you're going to select smallest file size. Smallest file size. So that way it will show up looking good in the gradebook. And then hit Save. Make sure Preserve Photoshop Editing Capabilities is not checked. Preserve Photoshop Editing Capabilities should not be checked. And then hit Save PDF. Now we're going to save this as a JPEG. So step one, we're going to make this a RGB mode again. So we're going to go to Image, Mode, and we're going to make it back to RGB mode. Image, Mode, and we're going to make it an RGB mode again. This is the ideal mode for the screen. Don't flatten. And now, as per the directions in the assignment, we're going to shrink this down to 500 pixels on its shortest side. So we're going to go to Image, Image Size, and the first step is you're going to change the resolution from 300 to 72, and it must be in this order. You must first change the resolution from 300 to 72. Next, we're going to change inches to pixels. Write this down. You're going to change inches to pixels. And the width is going to be 500. Notice, though, how I changed the width to 500, but the height didn't change, and now my image looks stretched and bad. This is what you want to avoid. So I'm going to hit Command-Z to undo. What we're going to do to avoid that is we're going to click this lock between the width and the height. And we're going to make sure that lock is selected and that you see the width and the height are now connected. So we're going to have to go back and change the resolution to 72. And we're going to change the width to 500. And watch, as we change the width to 500, the height changes to 773. Now remember what I talked about earlier, how you don't want to save your native file format accidentally in this small mode? Now you see why. See how much smaller our document is? And if we were to accidentally overwrite our original native file format at this small size, we would lose forever and ever our high resolution document. Now I know this looks really small, but if you look at how we're zoomed in, we are zoomed in at 25%. If we hit Command plus sign, 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 we're now at 100%, and it's actually not that small at all, although it's much smaller than it was before. Now we're going to save the JPEG, so we're going to do that by hitting, oh, thank you, Michael. So Michael also mentioned Command-0 to quickly change it to 100%. So now we're going to go to File, Export, Save for Web, File, Export, Save for Web. That way we're making a nice small JPEG that will quickly upload to the gradebook. JPEG High gives us a JPEG that is about 32 kilobytes, which should upload in about a second. And now we're going to hit Save. Again, we're going to browse to our DES104 April folder and save, and now we are saving both the JPEG and the PDF, which you will be turning in for your assignment. Yep, Michael, what's your question? Michael, I would recommend just, anything under 1 megabyte for this project is good. Students run into problems when it comes to uploading their file to the gradebook. If they have a file that is very large, like over 10 megabytes, they will complain that it's not uploading or that it freezes. And so in order to avoid any issues with having things upload to the gradebook, it's just use smallest file size and use Save for Web to optimize it. Alrighty, now let's talk about why I used the fonts that I did. And your choices of fonts are going to be really important when you're doing poster design, because you will lose points for craftsmanship if the fonts that you choose are hard to read. So let's first learn a little bit about what the different fonts do, and then I'll kind of show you how not to make your poster.
Type is power. The power to express words and ideas visually. It's timeless, but always changing. And that's what we're going to explore. Most people agree that the creator of typography was a German man named Johannes Gutenberg, and yes, he wore a hat like that. Before Gutenberg came along and revolutionized the world of communication, books needed to be scribed by hand, usually by monks, which was very time-consuming and expensive. So Gutenberg created blackletter, the first ever typeface, modeled after the writing of the scribes. Blackletter has thick vertical lines and thin horizontal connectors, which made it great for scribing, but it looked very dense and squished together when printed. Something needed to change. Enter Roman type. This particular typeface is Cambria, which you're probably used to seeing on your word processor, but the first ever Roman typeface was created in the 15th century by the Frenchman Nicolas Jenson. This is his typeface right here. Jenson worked mainly in Venice, Italy, and was inspired by the lettering found on ancient Roman buildings. His letter forms were based on straight lines and regular curves. This made them very clear and legible compared to the dense darkness of blackletter. This legible new typeface was an instant success, and quickly spread across Europe, riding on the coattails of the Renaissance. The next major innovation in typography after Roman letters was italics, which are like slanted and stylized versions of Roman type. They were created in the late 15th century by Aldus Manutius from Italy as a way of fitting more letters onto the page and saving money. Now we use italics interspersed in Roman type for emphasis. Aldus Manutius also created the modern comma and semicolon, but that's another story. Type development stayed fairly stagnant until the 18th century in England, when William Caslon created a typeface that set a new standard for legibility. While it wasn't anything radical, it was just what the world was looking for. The style of Caslon's typeface is now referred to as Old Style. A few decades later, another Brit named John Baskerville created a new variety of typeface, which we call transitional. Later still, a Frenchman named Didot and an Italian named Bodoni created typefaces that we have classified as modern. Most serif typefaces fit into one of these three categories, but what does each category mean? An old-style typeface has letters that have thick serifs and low contrast between thick and thin strokes. A transitional typeface has letters with thinner serifs and a higher contrast between thick and thin strokes. And a modern typeface has letters with very thin serifs and extreme contrast between thick and thin strokes. Next, William Caslon's great-grandson, named William Caslon IV, got sick of all of these serifs, so he decided to remove them entirely and made a new kind of typeface, called a sans serif. It didn't catch on immediately, but would eventually get really big. During the Second Industrial Revolution, advertising created a need for new typefaces. Letters were made taller and wider, mainly used in large sizes on posters and billboards. Things got pretty weird, but one happy result of all of this experimentation is Egyptian, or slab serif. It has really thick serifs and is usually used for titles. As a backlash to the complexity found in typefaces of the 19th century, the early 20th century brought something simple. Paul Renner from Germany created a typeface called Futura, and it was based on simple geometric shapes. This is called the geometric sans. Around the same time, a British man named Eric Gill created a typeface called Gill Sans that was similar to a geometric sans, but with gentler, more natural curves, and this is called a humanist sans. The next major step in the world of sans serifs happened in Switzerland in 1957 with the introduction of Helvetica. It has simple curves and is available in many different weights. and some would call it the world's favorite typeface. The world of typography changed forever with the introduction of the computer. There were a few difficult years of crude pixel type due to the primitive screen technology. But then technology evolved and computers began to allow for the creation of thousands of beautiful typefaces. And the odd, dud. But now anyone has the freedom to create their own unique typeface. And that is the history of typography.
Alrighty, so as you might have learned from that short video, the font that I used for this poster is a sans serif font, meaning there are no serifs. And the advantage of using a sans serif font is that it is very easy to read from far away. And Impact is one of the boldest sans serif fonts that comes already in Photoshop. And so it's great for these posters. Something that we want to avoid is fonts that are difficult to read and colors that are low contrast with the background. So let's say I'll use the green that I originally used, and let's say I'll choose, instead of doing something that is going for readability, I'll do something that is pretty instead. Let's see, try to think of calligraphy. And I see students do things like this a lot, not a lot, but students who end up earning not so great grades on their assignments is not only will they use a font that's kind of hard to read, especially from far away, but some students will not think about the background color that they use and how it might make the text hard to read. So let's say if I use something like a blue background and green text, it's getting really hard to read really fast, right? And let's compare it to this. So you can see how black and white with a very bold font is so much easier to read than something like this. And if you're not quite sure whether your colors are going to be hard to read, consider throwing a black and white filter over everything. And you can see now that that green font I chose was nearly identical in value to the blue background, and it's completely disappeared. So this is why value is more important than color. And this is why you want to make sure that you have either very, very dark text against a very, very light background, or very, very light text against a very, very dark background. It doesn't matter what colors you choose as long as the value contrast is there. And if you look over at your color picker, you can see very, very light colors up at the very top of your color picker, very dark colors at the bottom. So make sure your background and your text are on opposite sides of the color picker. Either very, very light with very, very dark, or very, very dark with very, very light. Now let's talk about your assessment this week, which is your chance to learn blending modes. Does anyone want me to go over anything I taught, since I'm moving away from the assignment now and I'm moving on to the assessment? Does anyone want me to answer any questions about the assignment? Any questions, or anyone want me to go over anything from the assignment before we move on? Okay. Oh, sure. I'd be happy to critique your assignments before you turn them in. Just come to my multi-session on Tuesday or Thursday and bring in your assignment, and I'll be happy to look at it before you turn it in. Okay, so for your assessment, you are going to be applying textures to an image, and you want to make sure that you use your rules of alignment and making sure that your textures are going to line up nicely with your image, and then you're going to use blending modes to get those textures to texturize your image without covering it completely. And so what we're going to do is download this image first. And one of the textures that you have to download is an EPS file. Very, very important that you learn how to convert an EPS file to JPEG so that you can use it in Photoshop. Because by default, your EPS file will not open up in Photoshop. Okay? So I've downloaded the image. And now we're going to download each of the textures. Texture 2 is the EPS file. Now we're going to go into Photoshop, and we're going to go to File, File, Open in Photoshop. There we go. File, Open. And we're going to open up the tree layer first, which is this one. And we can use the guidelines to help us line up our textures. So you can, get your ruler out. You can put these guidelines here, and this will help you line things up. And I'll Command + sign to zoom in really, really close. So we want to make sure, I'll use the Move tool. Move these guidelines right over the line. Seems like you have to zoom in really, really close here. There we go. And there we go. Okay, so now I got those guidelines all nicely lined up. And I'm going to go up to File. And the first thing is I have to open up that EPS file and convert it to JPEG so that it will come into my document. So instead of going to File, Place, I'm going to go to File, Open. Go to that EPS file. And it first asks you to rasterize the EPS format. So this is, you want to take notes, you want to write this down. See where it says inches there? We're going to change that to pixels. And let's make it a nice big size. So we're going to make it 5,000 pixels by 5,000 pixels. That'll be nice and big. And now I'm going to click OK. And we're just going to wait for it to rasterize. We're just going to wait for it to rasterize. Okay, good. Now I'm going to save it as a JPEG. So I'm going to go to File, Export, Save for Web. And I'll just save it to my downloads folder so I remember to delete it. So JPEG high, save. There we go. So now I've successfully changed that EPS file to a JPEG, and now it'll be ready to bring into my document. Oh, April just asked a great question about her week 3 assignment. April asked, how do you make the hat object smaller? What you do is you hit Command T, April. That is the transform controls. And then remember, you hold down the shift button and you drag on the corner. You drag at a diagonal angle inward this time. Yep, so I just save everything as a JPEG high, so it's nice and small. Now we're ready to bring in these textures over our image. So I'm gonna go to File, Place Embedded, and I'll bring in these textures one at a time. First, the image 1 JPEG. I'm gonna click and drag this up to the top corner. Now I'm going to get rid of the properties window, hold down the shift button, and I'm gonna click and drag. And this is a great thing to look at, April, because you're confused about resizing. Watch what I do. I hit Command T, and I hold down the shift button, and now I'm making something smaller by clicking and dragging. See how I'm moving my cursor at a diagonal angle? That's how you shrink something down. You move your cursor at a diagonal angle. And I want to make sure that my texture lines up with my guidelines. So I'm going to hit Command +, hold down the shift button, click and drag, and I'm just a little bit down too far. So I'm going to use my arrow keys to budge this texture up. So I'm using the up arrow, up arrow, up arrow on my keyboard, up arrow, up arrow, up arrow, up, 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 to budge it into place. Now Command +, I just want to make sure. See how I'm just like a pixel outside? There we go. And I'm just using the arrows on my keyboard to budge it into place. Now, I'm going to hit Enter or Return on my keyboard. So the next step is I have to find a good blending mode to put this texture on so that I can see the tree through the texture. And this has a nice mixture of lights and darks. So overlay would be good, hard light would be good, multiply might be good, and also screen might be good. So let's go down to our blending modes here, and let's see what multiply looks like. So that's pretty cool because it makes it really dark and sparkly. You can also try screen. It's a little lighter and more magical. You can also try overlay, and there's no right answer here. The only thing that's important is that we see the texture. Soft light is also good. Hard light's also good. We want to see the texture, and we want to see the tree. I'm going to just go with screen. I like the kind of light look that screen gave it. Again, you don't have to do it the way I did it, but you do have to use a blending mode, and you have to line it up nicely. So now I've made a new layer, and I can go to File, Place Embedded, and I'm going to go to the JPEG that I made from the EPS file. So I converted that EPS file to a JPEG, and there it is in my downloads folder. And now I'm going to hit Place. And now I'm going to resize this by holding down the Shift button and clicking and dragging upward at a diagonal angle. So not vertical, not horizontal, kind of like the angle of a roof. And now I'm going to hit Enter or Return. Now I will command plus sign, command plus sign, command plus sign, command plus sign. And I can now budge this into place. Up arrow, up arrow. So I'm using the arrows on my keyboard. Up, 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 up to budge it. Left, 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 left. Right, 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 rather, to budge it, and then enter a return. Okay, now I can use a different blending mode. So let's just see what multiply would look like. That's kind of nice because multiply keeps the blacks showing through. Now we'll use another texture. So I'm going to go File, Place Embedded, Texture 3. Now, April, do you remember how we resize something? We hold down the Shift button, we click on the corner, and then we drag it downward at a diagonal angle. And now I can use the arrows on my keyboard, the down arrow, down arrow, down arrow, to budge it downward. In fact, I can move it on my own a little bit faster. Now, once it's here, down, 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 down. And then left, 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 left. Almost there. Good, and now I'm going to hit enter or return. So now I want a blending mode that makes the texture, the lights, and the darks show through really nicely. And I think hard light might look really good. So I'm going to go to my blending modes here from this drop-down menu, and I'm going to click on hard light. And that looks nice because I can see the shiny parts and the slightly darker parts. And now I'm going to go to File, Place Embedded. Again, this paper texture. This paper texture is really, really light. So I'm going to hold down the Shift button, click and drag at a diagonal angle. Command plus sign to zoom in. Down, 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 arrow. I'm just using the arrows on my keyboard to budge this down. And then the left arrow, left arrow, left arrow to budge this over. And now I'm going to hit enter or return. And now I really want to see, because there's not much contrast here in this paper texture. So I wonder if vivid light will give us something nice. Vivid light is so light. Linear light, pin light. There we go. Pin light is nice because pin light gives us that texture and it lets us see the tree. So now what we're going to do, the final thing that this assessment asks for is to put the hue saturation adjustment layer over everything. So I'm going to go to the circle that's light on one side, dark on the other at the bottom of the layer panel. And I'm going to click on Hue Saturation. And you can either just recolor everything just by moving the hue slider around, or you can make it a monochromatic color scheme by clicking on Colorize and choosing whatever color you want. And you're going to submit a JPEG. So of course you're going to always save your native file format by going to File, Save As, go to your folder, make sure your name is in there somewhere, DES104Week4 _ assessment _ your name. So you're backing up your native file format, your .psd file, but you're going to be submitting the JPEG. So you're going to go to File, Export, Save for Web, File, Export, Save for Web. JPEG High. Browse to your DES104 folder and hit Save. Ta-da, and that is how you do the week 4 assessment. Any questions on this at all? And guess what? This skill that you learned of using blending modes and adjustment layers, you can use this in your poster design. So for instance, let's say you wanted to put a cool texture over your poster. You can go to File, Place Embedded, and find a cool texture on the internet or one of the textures in the classroom. Place it over your poster. Put it on a blending mode such as hard light. And now your poster has a cool texture. This is a little bit overpowering, so I would recommend lowering the opacity just a little bit. And you can use all those different tools that you learned in week 2 and week 3. For instance, applying a vignette over something, you can go to the circle that's light on one side, dark on the other. And you can go to the gradient, and you can put black and white gradient over everything, radial. Right? And then we know how we can see through it by putting it on the multiply blending mode. And then we can put a photo filter on it if we wanted to by going to photo filter. Just like we did in week 2. So you are welcome to have fun and be creative with your poster, because this is your portfolio project. So this is something that hopefully you could use to send out there to show people that you can design and get a job. Any questions at all so far? Alrighty, I want to talk a little bit about how to get your first job and what to bring to your job interview. So all these things that you are doing, you're of course putting into a portfolio, but then how do you present that? How do you present your skills when you go and meet with the board of people who are looking to hire you? So here are some things that have worked for me, and I put these ideas together in a little video for you. Hey you guys, so I want to do a little show and tell with you all today. I have some things that I bring to interviews, and I hope that you guys get these various items made and so that you can bring them to your interviews and have a lot of success on your job search. So this first thing I'm going to show you is what I call the Leave Behind portfolio. There you go. And this is what I get printed at lulu.com, and it has all of my artwork in it, my favorite artwork, let's say that. And this is then something that I can leave with the client or employer that I'm interviewing with. They're really inexpensive. They're between $10 and $20 for each one to get printed. And so you can get a stack of these made, plenty of them, take a look. And then when you go on job interviews, you can leave this with the people that you're interviewing with. And even if they don't hire you, maybe they find someone else whose style is a little bit better fit for their project, they're going to have another project come up. And they're going to remember you because this is going to sit on their shelf. It's way too nice to throw away. And they'll think, oh, that person's style is a much better fit for this project that we're working on. So they're going to give you a call, and this is just a great way to stay in someone's memory by leaving these with the people that you interview with. Now, another thing I get made are these postcards, and I get these made at overnightprints.com. On one side, let's see, it has my contact info, and on the other side it has my artwork. And these are nice and big and colorful, and so they're not going to be stuffed into someone's purse and forgotten about. These might go on someone's fridge or on someone's bulletin board in their office. And then when they have a project come up, they're going to look at your artwork hanging there, and they're going to give you a call. So get a bunch of these made, overnightprints.com. Really inexpensive, and you can get the rounded edges, you can get the shiny on one side, the matte on the other side, and these will be something that you will use to stay in someone's mind when they're hiring for projects. Now, I also have my actual big printed, carrying case portfolio that has all of my artwork mounted on these, I guess you could say, kind of hard mat board or cardstock. I don't print these and make them myself. I get all of my artwork together on a disc or a CD, and then when I'm ready to get it printed, I'll go to Kinko's or Staples, and I just ask them to print it and mount it on black mat board and cut it, so it's all nice and pretty. And all of my pieces together to get printed and mounted only costed like $100. And you have these forever, and as you make art that gets better and better, you can start to throw away or give away the pieces that you don't need anymore and replace them with the pieces that you do like. And yeah, so just carry this in a little carrying case, when you go to your interviews. Take out each of these pieces individually and pass them around the table with the people that you're interviewing with so that they can look at them up close, and they can pass them and talk about them with their colleagues and everything. And then the next thing is, of course, your resume, and you're going to want to get some nice, clean, good-looking resume paper. Staples, Kinko's, you can get this a lot of places. And this is a resume paper that has texture to it, and it's got some thickness to it, and you want to print out tons of copies of your resume because you're going to go from job interview to job interview. You're going to be interviewed by between 3 and 5 other people, and you want to just be able to whip out your resume, and you want to be able to have lots of resumes available whenever you need to hand it to people. And the last thing, I have these little mugs that I got made at Zazzle.com, And these are like little leave behind presents. So every job interview you go on, you leave a little present with the person that you're interviewing with. And this is going to stay on their desk. This is going to be used for drinking out of, or used as a little container for people's pens. And this is just another way to stay in someone's memory. And then when a project comes up and your style kind of fits with that project, they'll give you a call. You can also get little mouse pads made, and you can give those away during your interview. And periodically during holidays like Halloween, New Year's, you could just send out these little presents to different companies that you've interviewed with. And they're going to have another little present from you, and another way to kind of stay in their mind and on their radar when a project comes up that your style fits. Alrighty, so that is some things that you guys can do to help improve your chances of getting a job. And I want to, okay, yeah, feel free to email me if you guys have any questions. Really important, your discussion this week is on the elements of design, which are contrast, repetition, alignment, and proximity. And it's really important that you utilize these elements of design in your poster design this week. So here's an example of good contrast and poor contrast. So we want to make sure that we have light colored text against a dark background, or vice versa. Don't have a colored text on a colored background with a thin font that makes it hard to read. Repetition. So repetition means you don't want to use a lot of different fonts on a design. Stick to just one or two. Stick to a consistent color scheme. And alignment means that everything lines up, and that's why we use those guides and grids. So see how the H's in Helvetica all line up here. See how the L and the I line up here. So alignment, like I did on my project. And then proximity, things that are grouped together look like they belong together. So I had the slogan grouped together with the image, and then I had the URL a little bit farther away down below. So grouping important elements together helps them to feel connected. So the slogan with the pictures of the animals. A good strategy for success with your project this week means use guides and grids, use symmetrical or asymmetrical balance, which is something that I talk about in the pre-recorded lecture, so definitely check that out. I also talk about the rule of thirds and visual hierarchy in the pre-recorded lecture as well, so you're encouraged to check that out too. Keep it simple. Don't have a lot of extraneous elements in that. Look at your design in several different colors, and this is something I talk about and I demonstrate in the pre-recorded lecture, so you're encouraged to check that out. And I also demonstrate how to output all of your variations onto a contact sheet so you can see which of your variations is the most effective, and that's something also that's in the pre-recorded lecture that you are welcome to check out. Now remember, I have multi-sessions on Tuesdays and Thursdays, so come on by if you need one-on-one help with your assignments or you want to show me your work. And this is your final week. It's really important to remember that this is a hard deadline this week. Everything has to be in. When midnight Mountain Time rolls around, and if your assignment is not submitted, you will be out of luck and you will lose out on those 185 points. So please, please get your assignment turned in early if at all possible. Alrighty, so that wraps things up for class. If you have any questions, go ahead and ask. If you don't, you are free to go.